My name is David Miller. I'm the owner and founder of Massolit Books in Krakow, Poland. And I'm sitting here with my fellow members of the Progressive Americans in Krakow, a group that we formed in February to support politicians in America that fit with our vision of the way American democracy should be. In other words, Bernie Sanders. And we also would like to spread the word of local activists here in Eastern Europe that we feel people should learn about and know about in the West as well.
So I'm born in the United States, but a child of two World War II refugees. My father fought as a soldier at the age of 19 for Poland's freedom at the beginning of World War II, and then for France's. My mother survived the Soviet occupation, going through a gulag camp and coming out from the USSR through various countries. So we can say that I have fighting for freedom and surviving tyranny in my blood. I was born and raised in the United States, and the first natural-born citizen in the United States in my family. And I'm of the cohort that protested for and won the right to vote at the age of 18, and have been very proudly, happily voting in Poland after I officiated my Polish citizenship, as well as in European elections and, of course, every American election. And feel that this is a right and a responsibility for every citizen of a democratic country. And it is something that we have to work at all the time. So when David called, it was a natural thing for me to answer.
I'm Christopher Gray, and I'm from Connecticut, and I have been living in Krakow for 25 years and working as an English teacher. I'm happy here, and my life is good, but at the same time, as many people have called people like me expats, that's a term which I've never felt particularly comfortable with or gravitated towards, because that means expatriate to me. So although in general, I don't consider myself to be a political activist, I have been an activist for public space issues here in Krakow, which have been very important to me. And I'm actually glad that at the present moment, I'm not living in America, not because I'm anti-American, but because I think I'd have to live my life as solely a political activist, which would be a great cost to my family as a father and husband. So I'm happy I've got these guys, because when David called, it was a great relief, because I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. I think we all have to do our part, and I do believe it's my responsibility to do something. So that's why I'm here.
I should say something about myself, too. I mentioned before that I'm the owner and founder of Massolit Books in Krakow here, where we're sitting right now. I personally first came to Poland in the mid-90s as a student. I was interested in the Jewish history because my grandparents were from Eastern Europe, Jewish from Eastern Europe. And I became fascinated with Eastern Europe as part of my heritage. And I came back in 2001, established Massolit as partly idea of, back then the internet wasn't so present as it is now. So the idea was to present viewpoints that might not be heard in Eastern Europe, feminist viewpoints, Jewish viewpoints, minority viewpoints. And that was the basis upon which I built the bookstore 25 years ago, or almost 25 years ago. I've been here since, living continuously since 2001. But I still vote in American elections. And I'm very concerned about what's going on now in the US, that I think this is the changes that the Trump administrations are making is moving towards a version of democracy like Orban in Hungary, or Erdogan in Turkey, or Putin in Russia. And I feel that there was a feeling of helplessness I had after Trump came into power and he started doing massive firings in the federal government. And so I called around to the people I knew who were Americans in Krakow that we had to do something. And from there was the beginnings of Progressive Americans in Krakow.
My name is Tim, from outside of Boston, and I've been in Krakow for almost 21 years now. I'm a musician, a writer, activist, former travel writer, technologist of sorts. I've worn many hats over the years, and I think maybe how I ended up in Poland is will give some perspective on my role in this group as well. And when I went to college, Skidmore, upstate New York, I ended up studying Central Eastern European Studies, and I did my bachelor's degree. I did a study abroad program in Russia, and I got to witness the rise of Putin, which was pinpointed by going to the ballet with George Bush and Putin in St. Petersburg in 2002. And shortly after graduation, that's when I traveled a bit around Central Eastern Europe. And once I graduated, I knew I didn't want to do a master's program in the US, and luckily found a master's program here in Krakow. And that was 21 years ago, and I've been here ever since. And since I've been here, I've been politically active, both passively and actively. Passively, I say, as a musician, my lyrics have always sort of headed in the direction of trying to inspire social activism, and I've increasingly moved in that direction. So when I got the call from David, it was, for me, an absolute relief to hear that not only was David organizing a group to actually speak out about what the Trump administration is doing, the direction they're taking the US, but also the effects that it's having on the rest of the world, specifically locally, expats, whatever we want to call ourselves here in Krakow. So I'm very excited to be part of this group.
What are the characteristics of the Trump administration that particularly triggered us to get together as Progressive Americans in Krakow, or as we call ourselves, PAKpeople? It's an attack on so many things that I think we have taken for granted for years. It's been an attack on our allies. I mean, spurious claims for taking away Greenland and making Canada being the 51st state, which is done tongue-in-cheek, but also not. And also spurious trade wars against our closest trading allies. The attacks on the federal government, the massive reduction of workforce with seemingly no organization or no clear reasoning behind it. The dismantling of so many of the programs that protect our environment, that protect workers' rights, that protect our health. There's been the attacks on the judicial system, the open personal attacks on judges who have been ruling against this administration, which is part of the dismantling of the separation of powers that has kept America strong for so many years. It's the attack, the sidelining of Congress, using legally dubious executive orders to run the government and change the way that our government is financed. And sidelining Congress also as part of the separation, the destruction of the separation of powers. I mean, count the ways. There's the attacks on the poor to give more money to the rich with the new big beautiful bill, as they called it, which is more like big ugly monstrosity. There's been the dismantling of the attacks on the park system. I mean, one can just go on and on about all the ways in which this administration has been dismantling the bases of what I would consider democratic society. There's the attacks on the media, the personal attacks on the media, withdrawing of the right for the Associated Press to be in the press pool. I mean, one can go again and again and again, all the ways in which this administration is radically redesigning what we understand as democratic society. And they themselves describe themselves as post-constitutionalists. So what we have here isn't just simply an administration, it's a pooch.
We're talking about the extreme right, because there's nothing wrong with a right wing. What's wrong, what's dangerous is an extreme, right? And so this is...
Well, we're in a world of extremes now. Basically, the internet has kind of facilitated that in a lot of ways, as far as I see it. And people are tuned into their own media, either one side or the other.
So tune into us.
Yeah. Well, it's important.
No, it's important that we create our own public stand.
Well,
That's what we have to
It's
do.
a feeling, if we don't do it, who's going to do it? And so that's that. But we'd like to instill this in others as well. If you guys don't do it, if we don't do it, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
and the
something-
artists have always done it, like you mentioned in your music.
Yeah. I mean, artists, writers. I mean, this is also talking about what connects us to specifically Krakow, but Central Eastern Europe. I mean, the whole tradition. I mean, of the all of the dissidents and Samizdat, fighting tyranny. Through their activism, but also through everyday acts and supporting each other, building community, and speaking up through their art.
We can't physically move ourselves to the United States and organize rallies, but at least this way, through Massolit books, through Krakow, we can get out into the world and hopefully rally up some more forces.
Which brings us maybe to the talking couch.
Yeah, and I think the Massolit is the vehicle, let's say, right? Because David built a community over the last 2 decades here at Massolit, and this is the first place that I came to when I moved to Krakow that I actually felt a community. I met people here that were like-minded, not, let's say, just intellectuals, but fellow artists, people that had traveled, that were open to seeing the world in a different way and talking about it. And it was, from the beginning, it was a place that inspired me, and immediately the books, the atmosphere, it struck a chord, and it's sort of this place. That's why it was amazing, that first meeting that we had, because it was the first time I'd been back here in, I think, maybe a year and a half, specifically in this room. And that's why I think early on, in one of those first meetings, the idea for the talking couch came about, because I think early on there was a lot of events that were at Massolit, lots of literary events, lots of cultural events. That's something that I remembered, and it immediately kind of struck a chord that, wait a minute, this makes sense in the sense that what we're trying to do in terms of the progressive Americans in Krakow and all of the initiatives that we initially kind of discussed. What's really lacking, I would say, in the progressive side is this community and building platforms for voices that need to be heard. Mm-hmm. And this is for, I think, the audience that we immediately started talking about was Americans in Krakow, Americans in Poland, Americans in Europe, but also addressing Americans in the U.S., right?
Right.
Now,
Right.
We don't know if our voices will carry that far, but this is where the technology comes into play, right? So, doing podcasts and, putting together discussions with people that we know, be they academics, authors, journalists from Krakow, working here to fight against tyranny, to build progressive institutions, to fight for civil society. So building a platform to share those voices with the rest of the world. this is what we're trying to do with the Talking Couch.
Well, talking is the start of action, because if we don't talk, then we're not going to act. So we have to start with talking, and then take it to the next step. You know,
And meeting is really important.
yeah. I think that's another thing I suppose we'd encourage others to do, is to meet up, because everyone, you know, they'd like us to feel alone and alone with our problems and with no way to solve them. But this is already some solution for us. Not a complete solution, but it is a solution
It's
of
better
parts.
to meet face to face than to be meeting constantly online.
Yeah, of
doom
course.
scrolling is not an action.
This is another important point as well, is education, right? And reading. I mean, back to Massolit, right? You know, there's, you know,
we have real
it is
tangible
not
books
an
around
accident that
us.
we're meeting in a bookshop, and one of the best bookshops in Eastern Europe. You know it's true.
Kudos to you. Really,
English language.
Really, kudos to you. Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, but seriously, I mean, you know, a meeting space, but also for, you know, reading these days, I think is even more important because of the digital dread, the, you know,
Yeah.
doom scrolling and the, you know, the algorithms, right?
And the TL semicolon DR. Too long. Didn't read.
Yeah.
Right? That we don't really read everything from cover to cover anymore. So we skim the surface, and that's why we need to talk, why we need the talking couch to go in depth into some of the things that
Yeah, it almost feels like there's an intentional scheme to reduce the attention span of the human being. Maybe it is an intentional,
I think you're right.
you know,
Oh, for
idea.
sure. I mean, in terms of monetization.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of monetization,
Yeah.
shorter attention span means more purchasing.
Yeah.
Or
On to the
So
next
if you
thing, on
do
to the
an
next thing.
AI video or AI posts, you'll get more clicks.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say one of the other reasons why we created PAKpeople is because we want to let people know that there are alternative voices out there from America. And we want to let people know that not all Americans are thinking like Trump and his supporters. And we want to present that alternative, that we are here and
And we are active.
I think it also alleviates us partially of any shame that we might feel, unfortunately, of being American at this point in time.
no, it's so depressing that he won by the popular vote.
Thank goodness that my surname makes people think that I'm Polish instead of American.
Cut that part out.
Yeah, but I think it's a valid point, and also, you know, I have kids. I think we're you know, the future generations, they're not only, you know, they're not hypothetical in our cases, and, you know, also being able to raise my children and, you know, tell them the truth and be able to speak out, because you know, this is, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, let's say, hide their identity in these types of times, you know, and I've known some expats that have gone that direction. But me personally, it was so refreshing to meet and be able to discuss. And actually, after the first meeting, one of the most exciting things was to go back and tell my kids, you know, we're talking about, you know, what's happening to America, and, you know, being able to tell them, because they're old enough that they're aware. And, you know, now when I tell them I'm going to meet the PAKpeople, the American group, they're like, "Go, Daddy, yeah."
Yeah, I watched the whole Democratic National Convention with Zosha, my 12-year-old daughter, in America, and we were like, yay. And then the shock of Trump being elected, I didn't see it coming, actually, and I was, of course, in my media, so I was cheering and rooting, and I'm in Democratic media. I'm not in, you know, in objective media, let's say. Not to say that it's a farce, but I didn't see it coming. I really did not see these results coming. Yeah.
Yeah, but the key thing is for the younger people to see it. I think, you know, I mean, it could be seen as depressing to think that it took Poland from 1945 until 1989 to overthrow communism. But I think the lessons that young Polish people had from their parents who fought in World War II, and then seeing that bit by bit the system was being eroded, that you could fight against totalitarianism, chip it away until it finally collapsed.
They did it, but they didn't have the imminent demise of the entire planet in that time period, which was great. Yeah,
America's not a totalitarian state yet.
Yes,
And what
yes.
we want is that it not happen. Right.
Yes,
We don't want
Yes, yes.
America to have to go through what Poland went through.
Right, exactly. So this is why
We don't want America to
exactly.
went
That's
through
why
what
we're meeting
or what
now.
Russia's going through now. So
That's
we're
why
meeting
we're
now.
meeting now. Yes, because the canaries have already collapsed in the cages, and we see that this is where it's heading. The first lessons of Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny. Right.
If you're interested in joining us, PAKpeople or Progressive Americans in Krakow, you can contact me at my personal email, david.miller@massolit.com, or you can come into the bookstore and ask about us. We have meetings every 2 weeks, and I will leave information in the bookstore about when the next meeting will be.
You can see links to all our social media here. And this is just the beginning of our activities. Obviously, we and everyone in the world has a lot of work to do. And don't wait until it affects you personally. Now is the time to act. It could be too late. Annamaria.
Whatever your talents are, whatever you are talented at, come and contribute. Let us know either virtually or in reality, but join us. We could use your help and your activism.
And look out for upcoming episodes of The Talking Couch from Massolit here in Krakow. We'll be talking to journalists, writers, academics, artists, people whose voices need to be urgently heard today. So guys, I think that's it.
Yep. I'd say come join us.
Join us. See you in
We're fun.
Massolit.
Doors are always open.